Welcome back, everyone. Okay, today we're strapping in for what I can really only describe as an absolute roller coaster ride. In this explainer, we're going to explore the bizarre, incredibly fast-paced world of a narrative simply called Texty. If you love a classic hero's journey but you kind of wish it moved at absolute breakneck speed while totally ignoring every known boundary between genres, well, you are in for a treat. We're talking about a story that compresses an entire epic trilogy's worth of lore, ancient artifacts, and massive plot twists into what honestly feels like a fever dream. So grab your notes, because we are literally speedrunning through this one.
Okay, let's dive into this, because the question of what happens when you make cyberpunk brain implants with magical pearl swords really gets to the core of why Texty is so utterly fascinating. You see, normally, a story asks you to buy into one specific world, right? Maybe it's a grim, neon-lit cyberpunk future, or maybe it's a high fantasy realm full of magic and knights. But Texty? It absolutely refuses to choose. It takes elements that have literally no business being in the same room together, like highly advanced, sinister medical tech and ancient, enchanted weaponry, and just throws them into a blender. It's a masterful, if completely jarring, genre whiplash that keeps you totally off balance from the very first sentence.
All right, Section 1, Awakening in the Temple. This is our call to adventure.
Right off the bat, Toivo, our main guy, is faced with this jarring juxtaposition the second he opens his eyes. On one hand, we have these deeply mystical fantasy elements. He wakes up in a gentle light on a literal heart-shaped hospital bed in a place called the White Heart Temple. A guy named John tells him his mother's surgery was a success and assures him that the Savior will help him out of the dark valleys of his mind. Sounds incredibly peaceful and spiritual, right? But then, consider this sci-fi reality of his situation. Toivo is actively hearing demonic voices echoing in his head. And why? Because, as John just casually explains, Black Angels have installed a mysterious technological device directly into Toivo's skull. They tried to take it out but couldn't, so now Toivo just has to rely on medicine to dull the effects. I mean, it's an incredible clash. You've got this faith-based fantasy aesthetic colliding head-on with a grim, invasive cyberpunk reality.
And hey, if you thought the genre mixing was wild, wait until you see the pacing. The story wastes zero time. We jump straight from incurable, sinister brain implants to 1 month later, where a character literally named Angelface gifts Toivo a beautiful white horse named Helmi, which, by the way, translates to pearl. By that very afternoon, Toivo is casually riding Helmi through a breathtaking fell village, and the details here are wonderfully quaint. He rides past a pearl fountain shaped like a lily flower, over a white marble bridge with salmon leaping in the river below, and past these log cottages with cozy grass roofs. He even stops to admire Ula's flower shop. It's honestly highly amusing how we transition immediately from deep cranial trauma to a relaxing afternoon stroll in a pastoral fantasy village.
Moving right along, we hit Section 2, the Smoothie Saloon Encounter, the Supernatural Aid. Now, what's really interesting about this setup is how perfectly it introduces a classic, almost painfully stereotypical RPG-style quest giver. So Toivo leaves his horse Helmi in the guest stable of the local smoothie saloon. Yes, you heard that right, a smoothie saloon, just as a heavy, ominous thunderstorm rolls in. He walks into this surprisingly quiet establishment, and who does he find? A figure sitting in the darkest corner, smoking a pipe. When the lightning flashes, it lights up his scarred face, and out of his mouth comes a strange voice declaring, "I am the Shadow. I know what you are looking for, Toivo." His actual name, we find out, is Topi Haltu. He is the ultimate mysterious supernatural aide, just waiting in the tavern to hand our hero his destiny.
Before Toivo can even really process this whole interaction, the Shadow drops his gifts and vanishes. Toivo is suddenly loaded up with massive plot progression. The Shadow leaves behind a green glowing emerald ring and an old treasure map that outlines a massive lore dump. Tulip Village, a cemetery, a witch's curse, an emerald catacomb, and a mountain cave filled with traps. The Shadow vanishes into thin air with a crash of lightning, leaving Toivo alone in the saloon. And in one of my absolute favorite, strangely mundane details of the text, Toivo pockets the magical glowing ring, grabs the ancient treasure map, and thoughtfully remembers to grab his umbrella before heading back out into the rain.
Which brings us to Section 3, Unlocking the Pearl Sword, the Trials. Let's move on and see how this builds into a highly specific sequence of actions. Following the map, Toivo heads to the local cemetery. Step 1. He enters through white, swan-shaped gates and navigates directly to his father's grave. Step 2. Resting on the grave, he finds a withered rose. But wait, this isn't just a sad memorial. Inside the rose, he discovers a literal golden key and a rolled-up poem. Step 3. Taking this golden key,
he proceeds down into the catacombs beneath the cemetery to find his family's tomb, using the key to unlock the heavy door. It is a perfectly linear, highly satisfying chain of adventure game logic.
Now, the poem he finds inside that withered rose is incredibly atmospheric. It reads, "The road to the cross leads through the grave. Death is victory, Christ is life." It's raw, it's evocative, and it injects that heavy, mystical, religious undertone right back into the story. It perfectly matches the eerie, dark vibe of a catacomb beneath a rain-soaked cemetery.
Once Toivo pushes open the unlocked door of his family's tomb, he steps inside and is greeted by this exact number: 4. There are exactly 4 coffins resting inside the dark tomb. 3 of them are standard, brown coffins, but the 4th stands out. It is a stark white coffin, and it's secured with its own golden lock.
So the crucial point is what Toivo actually finds when he opens that white coffin. Inside, resting in the dark, is the ultimate weapon of our story, an incredibly sharp sword featuring a beautiful ivory pearl handle. But it's not just the weapon that changes everything. It's the note lying right beneath it. The message reads, "To the White Heart Toivo, your mother." This singular note triggers a devastating realization for Toivo. He instantly connects the dots: the map, the curse, the witch. He realizes that someone named Elisa has been taken by the witch. The emotional weight of this sudden realization is so intense that Toivo literally faints from the shock right there in the tomb.
And that rockets us into Section 4, the Witch's Mountain, the final threshold. So, Toivo experiences a completely brutal awakening. He doesn't wake up in the cozy village, or even the tomb. He wakes up in a strange mountain motel, nursing a severe headache. That peaceful, grass-roofed Fell Village vibe we were just talking about earlier, it is completely shattered. A terrible, echoing witch's laugh rips through the air. The sky instantly turns pitch black, and a torrential downpour begins. And pulling up to the motel yard in the dark is a black horse carriage. And inside that carriage, the scarred face of the Shadow.
Resting on the motel table next to his new pearl sword is a second letter from his mother. It serves as his final set of marching orders, and man, it is grim. It reads, "In the tooth of the mountain, in a black-colored cabin, the witch casts spells, throwing a dark shadow over the village. Elisa is somewhere in there. Take your pearl sword and strike with it." There's no more exploring. There's no more Smoothie Saloon. It is time for war.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer breakneck speed of this story's finale. Toivo doesn't hesitate for a second. Step 1, he straps the pearl-handled sword to his belt and slides the emerald ring onto his finger, where it begins to glow with a piercing green light in the total darkness. Step 2, he steps into the pitch-black carriage, where the Shadow silently hands him a new black map. Step 3, as another massive bolt of lightning flashes across the sky, Toivo is literally teleported. He bypasses the entire journey and just instantly materializes at the base of a jagged mountain cliff, standing directly in front of a menacing, man-sized cave.
And that is exactly where our speedrun pauses, leaving us with this massive, provocative question. Will Toivo's magical pearl sword, his glowing emerald ring, and the medicine holding back the demonic voices of his cyberpunk skull implant be enough to defeat the witch and save Elisa from the traps of the mountain cave? It is an absolutely wild mashup of sci-fi horror, deeply religious undertones, and classic fantasy RPG tropes, all blended into one incredibly fast-paced narrative. It leaves you breathless, spinning, and honestly, pretty desperate to know what lurks inside the dark of that cave. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I really hope this structured look helped you appreciate the wonderful madness of TXT. Catch you next time!